in the standings, and I want to quickly posit that if IG keep the form they had in the first game, they look like the favorite, and this to me looks like, at least just to me, the battle for the last spot in the quarterfinals. Of course, there's still more to be played, but this is the tight one.
Yeah, I'm not willing to say anything after what we've seen so far in this World Championship in terms of favorites. One thing I'd want to point out, though, was the early ban Renekton by Team Liquid on blue side. I think quietly Renekton has gone under the radar as the second strongest champion at Worlds. Second highest presence is actually 9-2 when he goes through, but specifically banning it on blue side tells me Team Liquid's not confident in flexing that pick between mid and top, which is going to hurt their overall flexibility.
Additionally, when you have a look at something like Kiana as well, which we've seen in mid, top, and jungle, this is an old pitfall for the Liquid lineup. They don't necessarily have the most flexible solo laners, but when they are on their picks, they do have great impact. So I think that this is to the game plan. This is what you should expect. And Liquid has a lot of games that have gone to script so far in Worlds. Their game plan is very difficult to disrupt. I feel getting the best marksman on the patch for Doublelift is certainly going to be a step in the right direction.
And I think it's even better for them to first pick this because Nuclear is so comfortable on Kai'Sa. Looking at this group overall, I feel like Damwon and ID are somewhat similar in the fact that they're very solo lane focused, and it's based off of having the same coach. Coach Kim was ID's coach in 2018 and Damwon's coach now. And Team Liquid is much more a bot-focused team.
Well, we've seen the Yasuo Gragas. It was just last time these two teams met, I do believe.
Yep.
That's going to be exciting. Last time it was Showmaker on the Yasuo.
And it certainly was. However, in play-in stage, for the first time ever, Nuclear and Beryl picked up the Yasuo Gragas in the bottom lane. So I think this team has shown flexibility with it. They've also shown the propensity to take a mage into the bottom lane if they need to be able to balance the composition. So certainly is a very nice start to what could be a skirmish-heavy lineup for the Damwon team.
It's keeping the flex picks alive. It's one of the most flexible first two picks you can have, especially because it's not often you have a support jungle flex and that's also a mid-bot flex.
Lee Sin is going to come through here for Xmithie with his Gragas taken off the board. It's going to be Lee Sin, and Xmithie has been exceptionally good so far at Worlds, I would say. Huge performances for him. He's been out jungling his opponents so far. The question is, can he keep up that level of play?
First time they played, he played Jarvan with a support Galio, and they pulled off some good combos. That's not what they're going to be able to do today, so mechanics will definitely be put to the test for Xmithie.
Now, I've been really critical of the Kayle pick throughout the entirety of this World Championship. I think I tend to agree with Yamato that it has turned into a little bit of a bait. However, the conditions for Kayle, when she is going to be successful from what we've seen, is the ability for the carry you're going to ult to get themselves into the fight. Now, who better than a Gragas-Yasuo combo to be able to set that up? If this is going to be a mid or a bottom lane Kayle, we've seen it can be protected in the short lane or with the support, and with the right amount of items, could certainly set up a very potent dive comp.
I think this is likely to be a mid lane Kayle. If we look at the performance from Jensen in week 1, I think it's a risk that Damwon would be willing to take, that they don't think Jensen would have to outplay it, and then that would push the Yasuo Gragas bottom lane. So if Team Liquid is kind of trying to guess where this stuff is going, I think that's the best bet they would have.
One thing I want to point out is we have seen Kayle bot lane. SKT played that with Tristana in the mid lane. That was a solid win for them, but you're right. That seems likely here as the final bans come through Irelia and Vladimir.
Now, obviously, it could still be top, but it doesn't seem to really be a Nuggery champion from what I've seen so far. He wants to be able to push up and take over Summoner's Rift. The Rek'Sai lends itself to being the bottom side of the map for the Yasuo Gragas, in my opinion, so we'll see how the rest of the draft goes.
Yeah, and you could see how many solo lane bans Team Liquid was throwing, probably because they were expecting the Yasuo Gragas to go bottom lane anyway.
Does he blind the Aatrox?
Well, they already banned the Vladimir, so I wouldn't really do that so much, but...
Blind the...
Sion, they're going to play a tank up here because I guess they think they could just withstand all the damage. If there's no marksman for Damwon, if you can be tanky enough, you don't get through that.
But it can be anything that Damwon plays top lane for Nuggery. It could be Jace, it could be Camille, it could be something that can...
Tristana, Vayne.
Be a pinata of... Well,
Cassiopeia?
It could be anything. I would expect... Okay. Team Liquid, they've been off on the moon scrimming because no one else has been bringing the meta over here. So, Sion Anivia in an all-important game at the start of week 2.
And that's really interesting to me because the amount of control they now have in these fights is going to be incredibly potent. However, Anivia historically has not dealt well with anything that can force on top of Anivia if you interrupt the ultimate. Can lead to a bad time, and that actually is going to be Nuggery playing Kayle top.
Well, they can do it now because the Scion isn't going to be a lane bully. So potentially...
You say not a lane bully, but Spellbook Scion hits real hard, and if you take Ignite and you have something like a Lee Sin for like the follow-up 300 damage that leaves, I think that you can potentially fight around this top side of the map. I'm not sold on Kayle in a solo long lane.
94 champions picked and bans at Worlds so far. Thank you, Jensen, for giving us yet another one here. Corki in the mid lane. There is a marksman after all, chat. I thought about all the top lane physical damage ones, but Corki, of course, an obvious one. Showmaker's played plenty of times. This is going to be a very exciting draft to see, because Impact, part of the reason TL won last time was that Impact was so much better than Nuggery, several solo kills. Scion, I feel like, is less likely to be that.
Yeah, one solo kill, but it was a very important one.
Very important one.
Yeah, he'd burned his flash previously. I'm still kind of trying to make this draft in my head, because also Corki mid has greatly fallen off, but Showmaker would be confident in this Corki versus Nivea matchup, and we're just going to have to see how the early game plays out and whether or not those solo laners end up being volatile.
Exciting matchup here. Team Liquid and Damwon Gaming hoping to keep pace with Invictus Gaming to get out of the final group stage here at Worlds 2019. Welcome back to Summoner's Rift. Team Liquid is the last team remaining from North America, and they've got back-to-back games here. Damwon Gaming right now, AHQ just after this one, hoping again to keep pace with Invictus Gaming, the reigning world champions, hoping to make it into the quarterfinals. Damwon hoping to follow through with what the rest of South Korea has done, which is get out of the groups.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we take a look at these compositions one more time, I do want to throw back to what Mithy said on the desk. He said he's been surprised at which the pace that Team Liquid has currently played the game. He thought that would be much slower, much more reserved, much more about their team fight. Well, if there is a comp that is built for that, I think we have located on Summoner's Rift. Absolutely.
And to Mithy's point, Team Liquid did work on their ability to close games quickly in the LCS. They had the lowest average game time and the best early game of all the teams in the LCS. So even though they play more controlled, that doesn't mean that they haven't been able to close out games quickly. And on the side of Damwon, they too close out games fairly quickly, but typically not with early game strength.
Is this a lane swap? Are we seeing the lane swap? You can see the level 1 invade coming in on the top side of the map. Scion is taking Raptor Camp.
It's a lane swap.
Low-key esports have changed the meta this world.
Woo! And that's going to be a red buff taken away. Impact's going to be rich.
So listen, Loki Esports beat Damwon in game 1 of their best of 5 with the lane swap. It's because Nagari was completely disrespectful to the strategy and allowed himself to get dove. This is just Impact taking the red buff. This is par for the course. Don't worry that he died to red buff. This is planned. So he'll be closer to level 2 by the time he heads bottom lane.
And not even that, of course, we're going to be in vertical jungling land where Smithy gets all of these camps. There's now less camps for Canyon to take. Red buff Lee Sin going to battle Nuggery here, going to fight over some Krugs. And Canyon will be sad to see that there's no red buff to take.
Well, there we go. That's what the Scion's for.
I mean,
crack the code.
It does make a lot of sense because another thing that...
Ooh, if he greets for this. I think he knows Core's missing from lane, but if he greets, that's a hook into a kill. This could be it. He's going to land the root. He's going to find a lot of damage. Now he should be able to walk away and stay alive, but that is 0 XP entirely for the Kayle.
Yeah, and that's really nicely played from Liquid because they're not going to be able to answer a top lane wave here for Damwon. And you can see that Impact already, with that level 2 and red buff, is collecting farm and experience bottom side.
The big question will be, though, is can Impact live through a turret dive? And actually, he can. They've decided not to turret dive. And Barrels ran top lane to help support this. So Nuclear's not even going to be able to get turret plates.
The one downside you do see of lane swaps, this was the change that was made to make lane swaps less likely, was turrets take half damage in the early game if they're not in bottom lane. TL's still going to plate for it. They're still getting some money out of this one. So the penalty for lane swapping is less gold, and TL have more gold.
And right now, Nuggery is level 1 and going to struggle to farm up on all of these creeps. Impact is 20 CS, the top in the game.
Yeah.
And has just been able to farm fine. Now against the Yasuo with the red buff, with Glacial Augment, This is actually a difficult lane, I feel like, for Nuclear to be able to play.
Yeah, A+ for me for TL on this early game strategy. Just the fact that they've decided to lane swap, knowing the Damwon isn't that drilled against it, because they actually showed on an early ward in jungle. If Damwon wanted to make an immediate adjustment, they could have, but they were slow to it. Nagari got completely starved of the first 3 waves of the game, and it gives TL a 300 gold advantage to start.
And not only does it change the matchups around, where you talk about Kayle getting a safe farming lane against a Sion, but even the players are playing unusual roles. Nuclear is now essentially a top laner playing a 1-on-1 against Impact, who, by the way, has thousands more experience in a game like this, and you've got Nuggery on the other side playing a 2-on-2, which is not as likely for him either.
And the last thing I do want to mention about it is the fact that it isolates the mid lane. Now, this is the area of the game where Anivia is so vulnerable. She is so slow. Her wave clear at this stage is also lacking. She really does struggle in the early stages, especially if you get jungle pressure towards that lane. Well, the ability to split the map, give Jensen a side of the lane to play towards, and now farm up towards that level 6. He's going to have the teleport available, has completely negated the area of the game that you want to attack this mid lane.
I don't think there's a punish here. He is recalling onto a ward. Nuggery not looking like he's going to try to stop that one. So TL going to put themselves back onto the bot side 2-on-2. Now that the pickaxe and some extra mana is there for Doublelift.
Yeah, now they're deciding to swap back, so if the Yasuo Gragas can reset in the bottom lane, it'll mostly be okay for them, and it would just be that 400 gold advantage from TL off the start.
Well, what I would love to see them get off it, it's not going to happen, is Impact sticking around for potentially a Dragon, because it is a level 3 Kayle that would not be able to get up there. And Ocean Drake would be the icing of the cake for this very potent early game. We'll see with the recall that's coming out of Nuclear whether they can still force around the objective. It looks like Damwon has scouted it, and Beryl wants to be able to get some control.
Ward comes down, both teams sitting around right there, and Tremor Sense even spawning a lot of this one. As Team Liquid make their way over, you can see Doublelift already pushing in the bottom wave, and Beryl the only one here to absorb any of that farm, and they're still going to go for the Ocean Drake. So Team Liquid so far, in these first 6 minutes, are staying a step ahead.
We'll see if they contest this, because Jensen needs to push the wave out in the mid lane. They might decide to fight this, even though Kayle is only level 4.
This might be a little bit scary. 1,000 HP. Beryl is around. Here comes the dive in top of this one. Looking at the kill. Doublelift out of the wave, and a nice smite comes through. Good pickup there for Canyon. Nuclear on the chase. Finds first blood. Showmaker in for number 2, and Damwon step right back in. Canyon may be traded. How about Beryl now? Because Core JJ is running out of health. The Nuclear explodes onto him. Now more kills coming across. Jensen does have flash. Waits around for more. Impact not going to be in a good spot. He's going to lose his life, and Damwon pick up a 4-for-1 as well as the Drake.
It's a disaster on the bottom lane for Liquid fans. You can already see Nuggery has not moved from that top side of the map. They win the fight. Once again, Canyon outsmite Smithy, and they take everything away from the Liquid early game.
That went pretty much as bad as it possibly could have for Team Liquid, when you consider that they burned the teleport to actually try and force the 5v4, but they weren't willing to preemptively force the teleport, which would have stopped Damwon from going for the engage. Well played by Damwon to go in for the fight. Actually, it looked like the Q from the Lee Sin got absorbed by Canyon, so Xmithy couldn't even get the execute on the Ocean Drake. And then even right here at the end, look at this ultimate from Jensen, being placed not really where it can get onto Nuclear. Nuclear goes right past it and just destroys the rest of TL.
And that is so well played from Damwon. The ability to coordinate over the back of the pick up the necessary kills before they then re-engage as a group. And there were 2 smite fights the first time around these teams played, one over a Dragon, one over a Rift Herald. Canyon won them both, and he's already won the first smite fight of this game. And that's a big game changer when you consistently lose out on this.
1,600 gold in a very early Ocean Drake to make the lanes even better. Puts Damwon Gaming ahead right now after some early plays out of Team Liquid. Top plate goes down. Credit does go to Impact, who touches the lane and still has some gold for himself, but a 0-2 Sion not going to look great.
And beyond the kills and the Drake, the Kayle is the big beneficiary of that fight. Nagari would not have had a way to get gold if Impact didn't leave that lane until he hit level 6. He got about a level and a half in that lane, also able to get enough gold and to save recall off, so now he's sustaining in Kleptomancy and level 6, so the Kayle is completely fine.
Farming up nicely, 53 CS right there. Meanwhile, look over to the mid lane as well. Showmaker, who got 2 of those kills, 83 CS, highest in the game. That man is rich right now. And that Corky last picked, saw the whole comp and said, all right, it's up to me now, and he's doing a great job out of this one. Team Liquid now forced off of their bottom turret, and more money goes in the pockets of Damwon.
And Azael spoke about this briefly on the analyst desk. However, Double Lift is drawing so much attention in the bottom lane this tournament. And I feel like it's because of setups like this. Unless Impact has the ability to exert pressure, you know, something like an Anivia not going to be the lane bully that we see out of Jensen, and he's had a pretty bad tournament so far in general, then it's a very easy game plan. Get in the bottom lane, shut down the last remaining piece, and don't allow Liquid to play their style.
And we've seen more ganks bottom from Canyon this tournament than you necessarily would have expected when you think about the players on the roster. Nagari and Showmaker are ranked 3 and 5 in EOS solo queue, with Canyon being ranked 1. So when you think of that, oh, they're just this top side map, and they leave this weak side nuclear barrel, kind of the whole LCK summer split. But in fact, Nagari and Showmaker have been so solid that Canyon's just been patching up the bottom lane, and it's been working out great for them.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right, is there's two ways to help out your solo laners. You either isolate the matchup and force pressure elsewhere, or you gank for them. And I feel like Damwon do a very good job of identifying when they need a gank and when they just need to allow Noguri and Showmaker to absorb farm. Kayle and Corki are not lanes you generally gank for. They are farm-heavy champions that once they get to 2 items will be able to take over the game. So I really respect how Showmaker has played this early game, making it about isolating the matchups.
He's almost 1,000 gold over anyone on Team Liquid. What an amazing performance so far for this Corki. Checks to see if there's a ward around, can come right back into the mid lane, and he is so close to Trinity Force already.
And don't get me wrong, this is a part of the lane that Jensen should actually be online now. He's got double mana items, he's got the Catalyst of the Ages, or Aeons, or whatever it's called now, to be able to start stacking up a little bit more health as well. So it will be hard to take him out. Early game Anivia is not a strong champion, but at this stage of the game does have a lot of control.
Yeah, I think he'll be able to hold this at a 20 CS disadvantage, but he's not going to be able to get side lane pressure, which Showmaker will be able to do. You got to watch out for when package respawns, because Showmaker could then crash that bottom lane again. For the most part, Damwon has no need to go top lane. It's very unlikely that Nagari dies to the Scion, and he's only going to get stronger. So expect him to just play from Rift Herald down on the rest of the map for the rest of this game.
And normally when you speak about a team that has something like an Anivia and Scion, you'll be expecting great scaling advantages. However, because there is a Kayle, as well as that Yasuo Gragas bottom lane that has so much backline access, I feel like this is one of the few comps that can bypass the tank line and try and just blow Double Lift up. If they catch him in a combo, it is going to be very difficult to survive.
Yeah, also got to correct myself. Damwon going for the lane swap with the 10-minute Rift Herald, that's actually become an extremely standard play throughout the World Championship once you take the first Dragon to move your AD carry and support up. So the fact that they were stronger and first to the play meant they could just get it. It would be a big play if TL can get a turn here.
They're going to flash wave then, puts down the wind wall, but it doesn't stop this one. The knockup is there. They're going to find a lot of damage. He's still jumping away. Will finally get the shutdown. Credit goes to Xmithy.
And that's the type of play that Team Liquid would have to do, but Damwon is probably fine with it. Nagari has actually been able to pick up numerous turret plates with early game Kayle, so the gold is going to stay pretty advantageous for Damwon.
And they're going to win in multiple areas because they're going to grab 3 plates most likely in this mid lane, plates in the bottom, and a second of those Ocean Dragons. If you want a prolonged, extended laning phase, you know, getting the additional gold now is great, but the second Ocean also just going to leave you very topped up. And I cannot stress this enough. The range advantage that you're going to have on something like a Corki is very frustrating to play around as a short-range comp. And then you add something like... Oh, hold the thought.
There'll be a decent amount of wave clear in the dive. Not yet there, but now with 3 alive, maybe Impact needs to be a bit worried. Does back up. Looks like the first turret may well go to Team Liquid's side as they try to get the gold a little bit close. You can see the gold difference. 2,000 will shrink somewhat as this goes down. Equally shares the gold. Now it's only 1,500, but Damwon Gaming going to easily respond to the bottom lane. They'll claim the 5th plate on the bottom outer turret. The only thing they lose is the 150 gold per first turret itself.
Yeah, so overall, that's decent for Team Liquid. I also don't feel like it's something that Damwon will be too broken up about, since they could get solo turret gold to Nagari's Kayle. But watching this one more time, it was a good setup. You're expecting a reset from TL, so that's why our Nuclear was going for that. He burns his wind wall very early, and it ends up being fairly ineffective, and then smartly double lift ults through. The one thing that I would have liked is if they could have been a little bit more deliberate about getting the gold onto double lift, especially since it was shut down tier gold, but the kill is a kill.
Kill almost got cast by Barrow, would have stopped Double Lift mid ult as well. Might have actually saved the teammate. Couldn't find him though. Double Lift held onto the killer instinct. And we keep watching this mid lane. It actually has shrunk a little bit. You mentioned it being a -18, but it's actually down to only about -10. So at least something going Jensen's way. Still though, make no mistake, a very, very good game. 2,500 gold puts Damwon Gaming ahead.
And I feel like the fact that all of this early game was based around shutting down Nuguri and trying to disrupt the isolated top lane matchup is the biggest disaster. If you look at what the game plan was, it was a lane swap, injection of gold into Impact, and the ability to kind of shut down how Damwon like to play around their solo laners. Well, right now, Nuguri is 30 CS up. He's found himself the completed item on the Kayle, and as you mentioned, he is getting share on all these plates that's falling down, if not isolated. So I feel like the split objectives right now is actually falling very heavily into Damwon's favor, and Liquid would be quite upset the fact that this game plan didn't work.
I think it'll be interesting to track with how Doublelift can use this gold, because as we mentioned before, the range disadvantage Kai'Sa will be at against the Kayle and the Corki is going to be difficult for him to find his windows. So yes, he's getting a lot of turret plate gold, and oftentimes you can say it's a good play as the team that's behind to trade objectives. I think that's where TL, like I can't really fault them for doing this. It's just Damwon also is okay doing this because of the Kayle.
Yeah, I mean, once you've already botched the dragon fight, this is all you can do now, right?
Yes.
You don't want to go back into the standard lanes. You have to keep trying to accelerate the pace of the game and feed gold. And, you know, you can see that Jensen is actually up in CS now, so he's doing a fantastic job of playing towards his strength in the composition. It's just that they would have loved to been able to go back time, had a second crack at the first Ocean, because that is where the game plan started to go south. However, now looking for some picks, this comp's still very good at being able to change terrain and split someone off from the rest of the pack.
Team looking hoping for a little bit of an ambush in that brush, doesn't find anyone though, and an easy set of wards getting traded back and forth. The game state now, still 2,500, really not moving around too much just yet. You can see 10 plays to 13. A lot of this has been the teams handshaking and switching different sides of the lane. 3v0 one side, 3v0 the other.
And I think the pressure is actually on TL to try and force plays. We've gotten to see a lot of Damwon games all the way since the play-in stage, and one thing that's been about this team is that they wait on item power spikes. They play actually very passively until they seem to hit that point, and then they go for it. So I think that's yet another item on Kayle. It's 2 or 3 items on the Corki, and then I think they'd really try and do something. Sure, it can change in the time off, but that's what I'm expecting from Damwon, is for them to just try and isolate this game and hold this 2,000 or 3,000 gold advantage until they hit the items they really care about.
On the flip side, I think that Liquid are also okay at the moment to say we still have 2 item spike as well as transform coming through for Doublelift. We have the second mana item stacking up right now for Jensen. He's going to become even more difficult to deal with and more oppressive in these fights. And their Baron, especially if Jensen goes towards something like Liandry's as his third item, is maybe the quickest Baron you can get in the game. Anivia does so much damage to Baron just through the repetitive E spam as well as the ultimate being put down, and is one of the better champions at keeping it safe. The turning tool of the Q is very undervalued in Anivia's kit. So I feel like there is very clear win conditions left. It's just about whether you can get towards that state of the game before Damwon start to take away more gold.
And they also already have river control for this Infernal Drake, which would be so beneficial to the triple carry threat that Damwon has.
And arguably all 5 care about as well. You've got the Warrior Enchant on the Rek'Sai, and even Gragas is going a little bit of AP. Not a ton, but it's going to matter somewhat there. And it's spawning in 8 seconds. Team Liquid and Damwon Gaming going to fight over mid-control. Everyone is on this side of that. You can actually see them all on your screen.
And this is very interesting because Showmaker does have package, and you mentioned this, chat. This is actually one of Corki's strongest spikes. When he's able to have the mobility, uses it to split.
Xmithie might be able to try a steal.
He's going to Q over the wall, go in for the smite fight again. It goes to Canyon, and the fight begins already. Stopwatch burn by Core JJ, same for Nuclear. What's the re-engage? Flashes to safety, but Impact can't go that way, so Damwon not only claim the Drake, they also grab a kill.
Another smite fight goes over to Canyon. Nerves of steel on that guy, and then of course, Damwon is going to likely win that fight in the river since they already had a lead. So 5 strong with Impact down. They're looking to break mid.
And with a split on bottom lane, Doublelift's not here.
Look for the body slam into the knockup. The ult comes across as well. That's an egg, and that's going to get poached as well. Turret falls. Damwon, 2 straight kills. The Drake, the outer turret. Tier 2's next up on the plate.
And that's just disrespect coming through from Liquid. That's too much confidence in what Anivia's wave clear is able to do. We already mentioned the dive tools that were not expended in that fight. And you can see that they run over the mid lane. Taking another look at the Dragon, however, I really want to see how this goes with Xmithie because I thought he was down in levels. He's actually equal.
Yeah, and also the package was used a little too early. So watch this smite right here. He takes Q in, but now he no longer has the Q execute. And it ends up being both of them pressing smite at 900. And Canyon just really played it better. I don't even think he timed that with his E necessarily. And then Impact kind of field goes through the rest of Dom1. TL not willing to fight.
And a couple of things to look at in that fight. Windwall from Nuclear did separate a lot of the damage sources that was going to come across. And because already the fact that Impact was so low, Doublelift didn't want to get backline access through his ultimate. So that was a very split fight. Certainly not the way that Liquid want to be fighting, I feel, in this game. If anything, they want the front to back. And I feel like Dom1 want to be playing more of a dive split up game.
And this has turned into an incredibly one-sided game. 6,000 gold and 3 Drakes at 18 minutes. Dom1 kind of just needs to run their playbook and execute here. Make sure the side waves are prepped. Make sure they get a little bit of control on the Baron buff. And then just look for picks in that area with the Gragas Yasuo, which is a great team fight initiator. So Dom1's looking very comfortable at the start of the final day of groups.
Yeah, and it's not surprising because with the maturity of League of Legends as kind of a sport, you have 2 distinct styles coming across. You have your G2s, which are more of your, eccentric artists that like to keep the map in a fluid state. They like to be able to change the rules and kind of bend how the game is played. But then you have teams like Liquid, and they are the scientists. They have the recipe on what success looks like, and I feel like they do tick all the boxes when they go for these plays. But that means when something goes wrong, it is much harder to combat your way into a game because you need so many things to line up before they will look for their play.
Well, items getting completed, and Team Liquid looking to find their way back in, but a Baron Steal might not be one of them, even though it is how they beat AHQ last week. And we can see a 6,000 gold lead, ward control, Drake control, Dam1 Gaming, with Baron spawning just now, set up that left side river. And as they push in, the wards come down, the other ones get cleared.
And we were talking about item power spikes before. Dom1's hit them. They have the 2-item Corki, the 2-item Yasuo, and the 2-item Kale. So if any fight prevents itself, I expect them to be able to go for it.
Once again, it's Fog of War mostly. Team Liquid sending Impact to side lane against Nuggery, which is still a solid matchup here for the Dam1 side. Let Kale scale.
Now, I really like this play out of Liquid. When you have run teleport on your AD carry, you have the option, especially with a Kai'Sa, of looking to attack the side lane, then being able to teleport towards the objective. We'll see how many times they cheat this, because it is allowing Impact to still be able to head towards these tank items. Having a tank is very important when you're behind for the ability to be able to vision check. And I feel like that is going to be Impact's role for the majority of the rest of this game.
Well, for now, he's stuck on the other side of that one. And you talk about vision checking. I want to bring up something else that's interesting is when Team Liquid are fighting for these wards, Jensen's putting these walls down to try to cut someone off, but the ones who are clearing the wards are Gragas and Rek'Sai, who can freely just jump back over the Crystallize and not get caught out. So even one of the strengths of Anivia, which is cutting up these jungle fights, they're not getting catches in the jungle vision fights.
Yeah, you can just really see Team Liquid, not many options for them to go off of. Even the Kai'Sa in the side lane, I think, is a risk for them because there's a chance Nagri at level 13 Kale and Gunblade active can just force a flash or ult of Kai'Sa away, right? He's an incredibly strong duelist. No one can really step up to him, so they're taking their vision checker and Impact, running him back and forth in the mid lane, which means they can't actually get control of the Baron River again.
And very importantly, I mean, even Doublelift at this stage of the game has fallen behind in CS. Sure, there's not as much available for him. And he's also still waiting on that transfume of the Manamune. So not going to be at a stage of the game where he wants to fight. And if you miss a spike, it generally puts you behind another item towards a 3-item spike of 80 carries. At that point, they just do a lot of damage. It becomes largely irrelevant of who they're hitting. But I feel like this is going to have to be a mistake from Dam1 for TL to be able to get their way back in the game. As I already mentioned, I don't think scaling is an advantage. I think ease of execution is also in Dam1's favor just because of superior range. So then you're coming down to very small windows that you can look to punish. And unfortunately, Dam1 just look very patient in their setup and are taking those windows away from Liquid.
Triple Ocean even benefits patience as well. I don't think it's the strongest Drake setup, but it does let Dam1 shrug off pretty much any offensive TL puts in. If you win any fight at all, you are always healthy enough to Siege or Baron. You will get enough health back that you will not get one shot off some random poke. So it lets them stay on the map kind of forever. It lets them really easily play these setups.
And you can see they can already start up this Baron buff. A win at the start of the day is also so big from Dam1. It's the 3 teams fighting to get the 2 spots out of this group. TL, Dam1, and IG. IG took down AHQ. TL plays AHQ after this one, so they will definitely have to do a mental reset if Damwon can close out this game as we think they should.
And further to your point, it's very important to get the win against Liquid because currently Liquid have their head-to-head. So this would equalize it, which means that Damwon get that little bit of extra breathing room. They'll at least be able to force a tiebreaker if everything else goes poorly today. So I feel like that is certainly an area that Damwon fans would be relieved about.
Once again, fighting over a little bit of vision. Back and forth, the wall comes in, and again, it just cannot really isolate these champions. That one couldn't even put them in the side, but regardless, Body Slam still exists. Once again, Damwon Gaming removing wards.
Yeah, and if Damwon wants to have a really safe Baron, they really want control ward in that blue area that they just fight over, so it is good for Jensen to be able to hold that spot, because starting Baron without control that deep in the jungle does carry a higher level of stealing risk from Xmithy, so that's why Damwon, I think, is just not going for Baron yet.
Red buff stolen now as well. Level 14 on the Kayle. At 16, you get even more range. You go up to 575. You'll start outranging all the other ranged champions in this game. And just sitting there in the side lane, catching farm, catching farm. Nuguri, highest damage share player in this group. And Kayle can certainly be an amazing late-game team fighter.
And I would be very surprised if Damwon start and commit to the Barons once they see moves. And you can see as soon as Liquid enter Fog of War, they actually peel up. Because I honestly think the only way that Liquid come back into this game is through securing the Baron somehow.
Yeah.
And the easiest way to do that is maybe to steal it away. So they just can hold the pressure they currently have on the map. When you think about it, they're losing red buff every single time it spawns on the side of Liquid. They're losing maybe a Gromp or a Wolf Camp at the same time. Resources are being drained away. And you can see that bottom lane is crashing. And Impact has to be able to move up because he is the person they'll use to face check. This is just gold continuing to funnel in.
They can also see the next Drake's Infernal. There's no reason to do anything too risky when they know that level 16 Kayle is coming and another Infernal is on the way.
Level 15 already, 1/3 of the way over to the next one. That's the huge power spike that really starts to take things away. Going towards a Lich Bane that's turret sieging as well as move speed for a side lane. And here comes the Baron setup.
See whether they get off it again.
Kayle's going for a kill.
All right, they might pick up one. They got to deal with the Kayle ultimate, but they should have the damage.
If they kill him, they try and double TP back in. That's what they're thinking, but Naguri's just outplaying them.
He's taking so much damage in the Impact. Baron has already gone. Devil's going to re-engage now. Look to find the damage. They do find the kill, but it's already the kill onto Xmithy. He went in for the steal way too late. Gets picked off. The Baron is going to do a lot for Damwon here.
And that just took so long to kill Nuguri in the side lane that the Baron was already gone, and Xmithy is dead, so it's a 1-for-1 trade, and Damwon get the objective.
So that's pretty much what they would have wanted. We're going to watch the other side of this where Xmithy actually was close. That was very close. So that's... I can't completely fault the game plan from TL since they were down 10,000 gold and Damwon was forcing them into a play. Ultimately, though, it does just work out once again for Damwon.
And now we will see whether the power of the Nivea is justified in the composition, because the Nivea used to be able to make games go forever. I have not missed this champion in League of Legends at all. Games used to go for well and truly over an hour when she was picked. However, Baron has been buffed since then, and the additional range on the cannon creep might just be enough to be able to push over the wave clear.
Definitely going to help, and the magic resist that, rather magic immunity that those minions have with the Baron buff will contribute.
Yeah.
And one thing that could also end up stalling the game is the fact that there's no Baron buff on Kayle, so that he's the split push force that would actually want to have something. So there you go.
Thank goodness for Corki. Split pushing marksman mid laners are such a benefit in being able to break the base. And you can see right now they are setting up in multiple lanes, and they might bring Kayle towards a group and allow that Corki to split.
You can see slowly but surely the mid lane wave dies. They take about half damage from champions. Gets yelled at, goes back as well, but top lane tier 2 could be under fire. No, it's going to be shoved in and left alone.
And it's all about minimizing risk. The Infernal Drake's up in 10 seconds. So that's going to take 30 seconds off this Baron because it means they're not going to escort these waves towards the base, because anytime they actually get towards the base is when TL might go for some type of fight.
And once again, that's going to be soloed. They could have spent the rest of the time sieging, but it's just very slow and steady. Almost 28 minutes in. Triple Ocean, double Infernal, third Infernal coming up.
I mean, Spot and I are shaking our heads, but this is just good League of Legends from Damwon. You don't need to take the risks to win the game.
What happened to the young, plucky Korean rookies that were going to come in and reshape the LCK? This is exactly the opposite of what I want to see out of Damwon. Sure, it's the right way to play the game. They might still win with it.
They've still got a minute of the Baron buff left. That's turret number 1 on the top lane going down. They're up to the inhibitor turret already right now. Rapid Fire Cannon on Showmaker means that poke can look good. some scarce waves are coming through now into the mid lane. Like, they're still gonna crack the inhibitor line while also having their cake, eating it too, and killing Team Liquid. Impact forced to run away, knocked up now as well. He might not get out without flash, loses the shield. Ults, when that was not needed, he was already in the clear, but turns around and go ahead and clears part of that top lane, but has to run away as well because Canyon is back.
But that'll get the inhibitor. Yeah, so mid lane inhibitor will fall down, and you can see already that Canyon is on that minion wave. So down one, certainly looking to break the base on this Baron.
They've still got 28 seconds. They can knock down this turret as well, as long as they want to push in for the damage. They're taking a little bit of space. Wave goes down, knockup gonna land, but Impact nearly dies. Goes down to 1/4. He's gonna have to regen now.
And you can see that Impact not as tanky as he would like to be at this stage of the game. Maybe the last wave they'll get the Baron. See whether they go for it here.
Ooh, Anivia turns off the ultimate. That's no wave clear. That's the turret falling. That's going to be double inhib. So yeah, take the Infernal, take double inhib. That's a great Baron Siege. That's a lot you can gain right there. Under 30 minutes into the game, Team Liquid not able to find the fight at all.
This is just Damwon coming in very solid. They've been here at Worlds for 3 weeks now. Remember, they started in the play-in stage. They had a few bumps along the way, dropping a game to low-key in that best-of-5. They did lose the first game to Team Liquid, but this has been just so solid from them. Sure, they fell down 400 gold with an early lane swap, but since then, they've just been in full control.
However, maybe the first time in the entirety of the game since that Dragon that Liquid will start getting priority over farm, because they're going to have 2 super minion waves pushing into their base. And there isn't going to be a Baron for a couple of minutes. So as Frostgurren loves to say, the objective now, hoover as much gold as you can off Summoner's Rift. Try and get to as many item spikes as possible, and then look for your one shot, because if you don't win that fight, I think it's game over.
Yeah, I mean, they're starting down the barrel of Baron spawning in a minute and a half. If that one someone doesn't end the game, triple Infernals coming up a minute after that one. This is going to be an incredibly long shot for Teal to come back here.
And we keep talking about creativity and versatility at the League of Legends World Championship. And I think this is the first game where I've really seen a stark contrast in style from down one. This hasn't been wait for an item spike and explode onto Summoner's Rift. This has been a very long-drawn, bleed-out style of League of Legends.
Yeah, but part of it, I think, is just the fact that they have 2 crit scalers on their team and a Kayle. So they just feel so confident in their ability to win this game later. The Drake spawns don't hurt either. This could actually be a 6 Drake game unless they find a fight here to win.
6 Drake games are pretty rare.
Super rare.
They almost always win. I think one has lost in pro play since this change in the game. Wave clear in mid, wave clear in top. Damwon Gaming happy to sit inside the base. Baron in 45 seconds.
And one of the weaknesses of Anivia is if you come from multiple directions, she doesn't deal well with it. So I like the fact that Canyon and Beryl are keeping Jensen guessing. He would love to have stepped up, already put down that ultimate, but you can see they're trying to hold waves, trying to bring multiple angles in for Liquid to have to deal with.
Well, bot lane is cleared, top is shepherded in, but it's just going to be farm going back on over. So at least money goes to TL, at least XP goes to TL. That part stabilizes a little bit. The gold lead only 10,300. It was higher earlier.
But the hope is that Doublelift now has 5 items, right? See whether he can make something happen in a team fight, because they're going to have to look for it. I feel like you can't allow them to sit around Baron with vision.
Give me the play. Looking forward, looking for a potential knockup. They're going to find the hook on in. Here comes the battle. That's going to end it all. Into the midline they go. Over the top goes Nuggery. He's trying to knock down Doublelift. 1 for 0 so far. Look at a second. Knockups come around. 2 for 0. Impact's going to fall now as well. And here comes Yasuo. Looking to knock down Doublelift. Not going to find the knockup just yet, but that will be the kill. Goodbye to Doublelift, to stopwatch. Canyon. Oh, poor Canyon will go down. At least a kill goes to TL, but there is nothing else they can do. Their base is in shambles. And Damwon Gaming will knock down Team Liquid.
And we thought Damwon was just going to try and scale into infinity. Eventually they said, you know what? We're probably strong enough to force a 5v5 right there. They get a 5-for-1 at the very end, and they kill the Nexus.
Damwon did scale to infinity, 1 in the mid laner, 1 in the bot laner. That's what it took, and they closed the game out. 3-1 record, ties IG up at the top of the table right now. That's going to be an exciting battle later on in the day. Current standings look like this is your other quarterfinalist. The LCK has topped every single group they've been in so far. Damwon would make it 3 of 3.
And I think right there, Damwon does show the variety that we want to see in their gameplay. We've seen big explosive games. That's a slow bleed out, but in the end, it was the correct way to play.
Yeah.
And I think Liquid fans are probably scratching their head right now, because that was a very different look out of them. They tried something and ultimately it didn't work past the first 10 minutes.
Once they lost that Ocean Dragon fight, they could never recover. And for them, they're going to have to put their eyes right back on the Rift for their game against AHQ, because if they can't recover from this loss,